Hey guys, we're going to be having a brief discussion in this video about something that has sort of been in the background for PvE stamina DPS builds for a really long time. There's a lot of builds out there along with the best in slot setups for veteran trials or arenas and dungeons that emphasize using daggers for your dual wield setup. But why is it that a lot of people don't use maces, or that they would rather use a combination of an axe and dagger or even swords over maces? To put it in the simplest terms, maces in the Elder Scrolls Online for PvE DPS are absolutely awful at the moment when you compare to the other types of weapons available to us, especially daggers, which are considered the best at the moment. To summarize, the dual wield passive, Twin Blade and Blunt, describes the effects of each of the type of weapon has on the damage of your stamina DPS. So swords, for example, give you a flat percentage boost in damage done overall by 3% each, totaling up to 6%. Axes give you an 8% each chance to proc a bleed on the target, which is great because the bleed damage ignores resistances, but people still prefer double daggers at the moment because axes are kind of RNG based for your DPS and people want more consistency. So each dagger, if you look at the passive here, gives you a 5% boost to your weapon critical chance, totaling up to 10% total because you're wearing two daggers or holding two daggers, and each mace equipped according to the passive allows you to ignore 10% of a target's resistance, totaling up to 20% of a target's resistance. However, the tooltip is very misleading. 20% certainly sounds like a lot, and penetration, as I've said many times before, is very important for damage output. Very important that debuffs allowing for more penetration, like Alkosh, take place to boost your group's DPS. The confirmed formula, however, for maces is 18,200, which stands for the boss's typical resistance, minus the sum of all debuffs, and then times 10% of that by 2. So basically, to put it very simply, your mace penetration applies after your debuffs, which is pretty bad. So supposing you have Crusher, Alkosh, Major Fracture, and all the nice debuffs on the boss with 18,200 physical resistance, maces will only give you about 1,170 penetration. And if you only have Alkosh and Major Fracture, you get 1,982. If you only have Major Fracture, it's 2,584 penetration with maces, and then with absolutely no debuffs whatsoever, maces will give you 3,640 penetration. Now obviously you guys see the problem here. In a raid, your tanks will have Alkosh and Crusher. There will most likely be a Power to Light given by Templar Healer, or the Minor Fracture can also come from somebody in Sunderflame in a Stam raid composition, which means you won't get much out of maces at all in comparison to using two daggers, which grant you a 10% guaranteed weapon crit rating boost, which boosts chances for critical damage hits that are further amplified by your raid buffs, including Major Force. And with how things are looking for the Wrathstone DLC patch so far, it's going to be double sharpened on your daggers, or one sharpened, one Nirnhone, with the Shadow or Lover bonus depending on the content you're doing, and depending on what kind of group you're running with, which further negates a need for maces because it's simply not worth losing daggers right now over what maces provide. Now, Few Turbo brought up the idea of using maces on a mechanical equity build in a recent conversation, and I'm aware that some people have been looking at mechanical equity for some DPS setups, but in my personal opinion, after thinking about it, even then, I don't think maces would be worth it in comparison to using daggers, along with the incredibly powerful sets such as Reloquent and Yokita, Two-Fanged Snake, or even Hundings. But yeah guys, that is pretty much why no one is using maces at the moment. I do hope ZeniMax considers reworking how the formula works in the near future. They might in elsewhere, I'm not sure if they will, but if they do, it will definitely open up more options for stamina DPS setups, and also probably relieve a lot of players of having to farm through a loot table in trials and such to find the perfect type of weapon. But yeah, that is hopefully a hope that will be answered sometime in the future. And as always guys, that will be the end of the video. Stay safe, and until next time, have a great adventure.